Hey there, thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with Keep Inking Up. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up! In San Antonio, Texas. And today I'm going to share a Christmas card using the poinsettia petals and the coordinating poinsettia dies. Now I know what you're thinking, Laura Lynn. My goodness, Christmas is over. What are you doing making a Christmas card? But I want to tell you, I have a plan for this year. To try to help me eliminate some of the stress during the holidays, I decided that if I just make 10 Christmas cards every month throughout the entire year, by the time October rolls around, I should have 100 Christmas cards ready to go. All I would need to do is jot in a note and address them and put them in the mail. So I decided I'm going to try to do that this year. I'm going to make 10 Christmas cards every month. Well, we're in the last month of January, so oh my goodness, I need to make my 10 Christmas cards. So I decided to pull out the poinsettia petals and make my cards. And I thought I would go ahead and share the card design with you all. So the poinsettia petals and the coordinating dies were offered as a bundle in the August to December 2020 mini catalog. Unfortunately, the bundle is no longer available. However, the two individual items did carry over, so you can buy them individually at the moment, even though they're not in any printed catalog. Let me show you the dies. These are the dies that coordinate the poinsettia petal dies, which were the card that I'm making today is heavy on the dies. I just used some sentiments from the stamp set. So actually, if you have a Christmas card stamp set, you really don't need to get the poinsettia petals to make this card. You could use something that you already have, but you would need the dies for this particular card. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to start with a basic white card base. This is our new white card stock that is replacing the Whisper White. This happens to be the thick basic white version. If you recall, our manufacturer that made the Whisper White cardstock unfortunately had to close due to COVID, so we had to find a replacement, and this basic white is our replacement. And I love this cardstock. It's really kind of a brighter white than our Whisper White. I loved the Whisper White. It was so sad to see it leave, but I'm happy that we have this really good replacement, the basic white. So this card base is 4 1/4 by 11, scored and folded in half at 5 1/2 to create a standard A2 size card. And I'm going to actually begin using my Stamparatus with the sentiment on the outside of my card. Now, like I said, I am making 10 of these cards, which is why I am using the Stamparatus. Let me go ahead and spread this out here. I like to put a stamp case under here. This is my Simply Chamois case, but I'm going to put it under here. I'm going to slide my card in the corner there and stick my magnet on there so it won't move. And I'm going to ink up this Merry Christmas sentiment. Now this sentiment does come from the Poinsettia Petal stamp set right here. But like I said, if you have another stamp set that has some Christmas greetings, you can use those. So I'm using the Tuxedo Black Memento ink. So I'm going to ink this up, and like I said, I'm doing 10 of these cards, so that's why I'm using the Stamparatus. So I've got that inked up. I'm going to swing that over and stamp that on the front of my card. And that looks a little blotchy, so I'm going to, because I can anyway, I'm going to ink it up again, and with the Stamparatus, I can stamp it up again. And make sure I get a nice, crisp sentiment on the front. That looks much better. Okay, so now I'm going to take this plate out because I have a sentiment for the inside on a different plate. Your Stamparatus does come with 2 plates. So I'm going to open up my card, stick down my magnet, and I'll again ink this one up in the same black ink. Swing that over and stamp that down. That looks pretty good, but I think I'm going to ink it up again just to try to make it a little bit darker, especially on that wonder part. Slide that down, stamp that. Lovely. I think that's much better. Okay, so I've got my stamping done. I'm going to put my Stamparatus out of the way. I'll get my Simply Chamois out of the way as well. And next we're going to go move on to some ink blending. I hope you noticed that we have new blending brushes in the January to June 2021 mini catalog. These come in a package of 3. These are blending brushes. I just love these. Now what I did is I got, I believe I got 4 packages, so I have a total of 12, and then I labeled them with my label maker. Now these are white bristles, and so you can tell obviously by looking at them what color is on the bristles, but I went ahead and labeled them just to help myself grab the correct brush when I'm ready to use it. And I'm going to be using the Balmy Blue ink with this blending brush today. So I'm going to swirl on some ink onto my blending brush. And because there's quite a bit of ink on there right now, I'm going to start on my scratch paper and swirl a little bit of the ink off. Then I'm going to come to the center of the card up a little bit and just start swirling. And I just want a really light blue background. And I'm going to come down a little bit to the sentiment. I'm just wanting a light background on the top portion of this card. Looks like I'm going to add a little bit more ink. So again, I'll get a little bit off and then I'll come on my card. And I'm just kind of lightly swirling. And I hope you can see that this is a really light touch. You couldn't get this with a sponge dauber or sponge, but I hope you can see it's just a really light color background. I'm not sure if I've gone out far enough. I think I'm going to add a little bit more. I want to make sure that I've got the background. I'll come down maybe a little bit closer to my sentiment. Anyway, isn't that lovely? It's just a really soft blended look. I really love these new blending brushes. So I hope that you saw those and hope you get them. I'll go ahead and close up this particular ink pad. And I'm going to set my card aside because next I'm going to do a little bit of blending on my pieces to make my flower. So what I've done ahead of time is I went ahead and I cut out 3 pieces of my poinsettia flower out of Poppy Parade cardstock, and I've cut some leaves out of Garden Green cardstock. And I hope you notice, I want to show you on these dies, they have pieces that cut out the petals as well as emboss the petals. I hope you can see that. So what I did is I put a little bit of washi tape, old washi tape that I had in my stash, over them to keep them together, so when I ran them through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, I didn't have to keep lining them up and placing them in the center, so I can do them over and over again, because like I said, I'm going to be making 10 of these cards. So I've already cut those out, but I wanted to add a little bit more texture to them using those blending brushes. So I have a red blending brush, and I'm going to blend on some Cherry Cobbler ink. Now I tried this using the Poppy Parade ink and it worked, but it didn't quite add enough dimension on there, so I decided to go with the Cherry Cobbler ink. Now to save a little bit of time, I've already done some of the sponging, but I wanted to show the difference that you can see. Hopefully you can see this is the Poppy Parade without any sponging, and this is the Poppy Parade with the blending brush added with the Cherry Cobbler ink. I think there's quite a bit of difference. You can see on here how the ink really kind of accentuates the veins of the petals. So I'm going to set those aside for another one. I've already done some of the ink petals. I do need to finish 2 more of these ink petals, 2 more on these petals of this flower. So again, I've got my red blending brush. So I'm going to add some ink, take off some, see how much ink comes off of there, and then I'm going to, let's see, it looks like these two need a little bit of ink. Now I imagine my fingers might get a little inky by the time I'm doing this with 10 of them, but I hope you can see how much depth, need a little bit more, that adds to these petals. So again, let me compare, you can compare these two. See the difference? I think that you see these veins really shine a little bit more than these. Now this is really pretty. You don't have to do this step. It's just something that I wanted to do. So I'm going to go ahead and close up this ink and put that brush away, but I wanted to show that I did the same thing with my leaves. If I can pick them up. Here. So again, here are the leaves without the ink, and here are the leaves with the ink, with the garden. Now this is garden green cardstock with garden green ink, and I think that that worked out just fine. I didn't need to go with a darker ink, but I hope again that you can see the difference in dimension on those two particular pieces of cardstock. So to add even more dimension, I am going to curl these petals on the flower with my bone folder. And I'm just going to lightly pull with my bone folder to curl the pieces of my flower. I'm going to do that for all three parts of my flower. Now when you do this, be sure that you hold really tightly on the center. You don't want to be ripping any of the petals off. That would not be good. So all of them now have a little bit of a lift to them. So now I can assemble these, and to do that, I wanted to add some little mini dimensionals. Now when I use mini dimensionals, I like to use the piercing tool on the end of my take your pick tool because these are so small. I just find it easier to pick up. Look, it's stuck to my finger. Pick up and stick to my back side of my flower petals. So I'm going to center or offset these petals in the centers like that, and then I'll add that to the center of the big flower. And isn't that pretty with all that dimension? The dimensionals give it some, the inking of the petals give it more dimension, and then the curving. So there are three different ways that I added dimension to this flower. I think it makes it just so pretty. And now I want to add the leaves to the back of the flower. So to do that, I'm going to use some glue dots. So I'm going to put a glue dot on the back of this little leaf and add it to the top of this one. And then I'm going to add a couple of glue dots to these two leaves, just picking them up from the roll, and then I'll put them behind the flower, just like that, and I'll add another one. To the flower over here. And I think just adding that little bit of green adds a nice touch. Okay, so there's my flower. I have a bunch of dimension on there. It looks just lovely. I did want to add a couple of little centers to the flower, and for those I'm going to use the gold glitter enamel dots. Again, this is an item that is not shown in any printed catalog, but it is still available. I love these things. I've gone through several packages, and I'm getting on the low end of these as well. I'm going to again take my take your pick tool. This time I'm going to use the putty end, and I think that I will use the medium size glitter dots, and I'll pick those up and put them on the center of my flower. Oops, went flying. Well, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't want to leave the sheet. So isn't that pretty? I added those glitter dots to the center. I think that adds just so much. Go ahead and put that away. Put these back. And now we can add this flower to my card. Okay, so I'm going to add the flower to the card on top of that blue. Now isn't that pretty? You see just a hint of the blue in the background, so it's not a stark white card. And to do that, I'm going to use liquid glue. You could use dimensionals, but I already have 2 layers of dimensionals on there already, so I don't want to add more. So I'm going to use just a little bit of the Tombow multi-purpose glue on the back side of the flower and the leaves. And now I can place this on my card in the middle. I'll hold that down so that the glue adheres to the card really well. And there's my finished card. So this again, I'll be making 10 of these for January. This is my January Christmas card. So hopefully I will see you in February with another design for 10 more Christmas cards. And hopefully then by October, I will have 100 Christmas cards to go. I am so excited about this plan. I hope you are too. I hope you join in and make Christmas cards to minimize your stress during the holiday season. If you did want to step up the card, now we do have time, so I could make 10 of these simple cards, or I could step them up because I do have time. I'm not under any stress at the moment. This is a card that I made very similarly, that just stepped up a little bit. I used the Tin Tile 3D embossing folder on the background. I made the card base, instead of being the basic white, is the Poppy Parade. To coordinate with the flower. The flower I made in exactly the same manner, except that I used glue dots in between each because I didn't want to have so much dimension, because I already added dimensionals to lift up this layer. This layer is of basic white using the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and I used Happy Holidays for the sentiment rather than Merry Christmas because Merry Christmas was too long to fit on this particular die cut piece. And there's another die in the set of dies that adds these little berries that I added some Wink of Stella to just add a little bit more sparkle. And again, I used the gold for the center of the flower. So that's a bit stepped up card. I'm not sure that I want to make 10 of these. I think I will stick to making 10 of this style card. When I opened this one, I added a little bit more stamping on the inside along with the same stamped sentiment. So anyway, I hope you found this video inspirational. I hope that you will join me in making the 10 cards a month for Christmas cards. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.